Hi everyone, I just wanted to make a quick content warning announcement for this podcast so that no one is taken by surprise. We do discuss homophobic and anti-queer language as well as racist language on this podcast. So please be aware, and I hope you are all safe and sound right now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Virginia Duan, also known as Mandarin Mama. I host this podcast, the Noona ARMY Podcast, where we discuss the particular aspects and challenges of being a middle-aged BTS fan. I am the entertainment editor for Mochi Magazine and a freelance writer and the founder of Brazen Asian, which is an intimate retreat for Asian Pacific Islander Desi American creatives and influencers. Today, my special guest is Jeff Harry, and I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Jeff Harry with Rediscover Your Play, and I am frustrated and don't know what to do based off of what has been going on in the news.
Yeah, so for those of you listening in the future, it is Friday, May 29th of 2020. At 6:14 in the morning Pacific time, and thus far America is currently on fire, rightfully so, I think, actually. And you may be wondering why this is actually being said on a podcast about BTS, and that is because I feel as if BTS were an American band, if BTS were in the context of America, that they would say something, that they would speak out about it. Probably not directly, but in their music and their lyrics, and in their, actually maybe even directly. I found out yesterday that they did speak out against the President Park. I think the one that was the president who was impeached. And they spoke out against her when there was like the Seoul ferry disaster, and just against her kind of clamping down on citizens' rights. So yeah, in light of that, Jeff and I are actually pretty vocal about things off of this podcast. So for those of you who don't know us except from the podcast, this might. It probably isn't too much of a surprise if you've heard our other episodes, or my other episodes. But yeah, today we're going to talk about how BTS, actually not even so much BTS, but how we can be like BTS and use our platforms and influence to speak out against injustice. It feels so heavy and helpless, and talking about just like not knowing what the right thing to do is, how to respond. The fact that this is happening because people just don't believe in the basic humanity and personage of Black people. You know, you're part of the Black community, right, Jeff? Like, mm-hmm. And I mean,
oh man,
just a clusterfuck.
I guess what I find so crazy is that, like, that's what I said earlier, is how can it get worse? And then it gets worse. You know, I mean, just go through the events really quickly is, you had, I think on a Monday, that person at Central Park, Amy Cooper, almost like get this man who was watching birds arrested.
Right, bird watching, like the least violent thing you could do.
So that happens on Monday, and then this guy gets killed, I think, on Wednesday.
Wednesday or Tuesday?
Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. He gets killed on Tuesday.
He gets murdered.
He gets murdered on Tuesday, and when you look at the videotapes afterwards, Other videotapes or other video, it's just like he wasn't even resisting arrest.
No,
and then now a lot of cops, especially a lot of cops actually on TikTok of all things, are saying like, I would never put my knee on someone's neck. I would never do that. You know, that is not police protocol. And then later on you find out this dude that did this had like 12 other incidences, including 3 other people that he also murdered, you know, on the job. So it's like, dude, come on. And this is happening all during a pandemic. And then the outrage when people get really pissed off and start rioting and looting, and people are like, I can't believe people are looting. And it's like, dude, you know, in addition that the system's corrupt, in addition that so many people of color have been targeted and killed or murdered, you also have 40 million people that are unemployed now. You also know that, like, so many, you know, millionaires and billionaires got bailed out and companies got bailed out, but small businesses didn't, and a lot of people didn't. So you're seeing all this corruption happening, and then you're losing your health insurance, and you may not be able to pay your rent, and then this thing happens, and you're so pissed off that you feel like you have to rage in some way or another. And people are like, I can't believe people are acting that way. It's like, come on, man. Like, come on.
I mean, you guys rioted, not rioted, but like showed up with guns because we had the audacity to tell you to wear a fucking
I know, man.
And you're telling me that you can't believe people are rioting because they've been systematically treated like worse than garbage for 400 years? You're telling me you can't understand that type of mindset when you show up with guns because you can't fucking because you have to wear a fucking face mask to go into Target?
Yeah. I remember posting this photo the other day where I just took the protest in Wisconsin where the guys were screaming into the cops' faces with their guns drawn, and then shows the other protests in Minneapolis where no one has any weapons and they're getting shot by mace. And you're like, seriously? Like, you're not even hiding the double standard. Like,
you're not even hiding your racism, right?
Yeah, you're not.
But like, and the sad thing is like, no one is surprised except white people.
Right, or certain
certain groups of white
people. But it's like, dude.
And certain groups of Asians, I would say. You know, Asians are complicit by our silence.
And I actually was writing about this the other day because, you know, it made me like look at racialized violence, you know, like the history of racialized violence. Mm-hmm. And they recorded the last lynching happened in 1981. The last recorded where it was considered a lynching, you know. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people said, what was it? His name Ahmaud Arbery, the guy, the runner that got murdered like a couple of weeks ago. Someone might have said that was lynching. But yeah, like they recorded the Equal Justice Alliance recorded that there were like 4,000 lynchings between, you know, I think it was like 1880 and like 1961 that were recorded. Obviously, there's obviously more. Right. And these are like lynchings of like where people literally would not only hang somebody, but people would come around and hang out like it was a picnic.
Yeah.
There was one in 1961 where they were like passing out flyers and advertisements for it, like it was this thing, like it was like a carnival or something. So So then that whole mentality, a lot of people say that then from white supremacy was like infused into many police departments, and that those lynchings never stopped. They just changed into a different, more legal form. Just like lynching was legal way back when, now this is legal. Yeah. So if you look at it in that historical context, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's just sad, though, because you're like, it's 2020, dude. It's not 1920.
Well, it's the word is what? Brazen? Impunity. They can do things with impunity because no one stops them, because they're in power. They can. You know? Hey folks, I know you're listening, because if you're still listening, because it's a BTS podcast. But the reason why I am including this on a BTS podcast is because BTS has a tradition of speaking truth to power. They have a tradition of speaking. Jet hasn't seen the debut songs, but he has seen other. Like they debuted with No More Dream, talking about how the pressures of parents and society telling them that they have to do things a certain way, that they have to, they have to get an education, they have to get a good job, and then, then maybe they can go after the things that they want. They have a tradition of speaking truth to power in like songs like N.O., even Spring Day, which I don't know if Jeff saw, but like it was speaking out
even
about
their Love Myself song has
Cypher 4.
It has a clear challenging message, where
and
yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying like where it speaks to, I mean, it's this idea of self-love, but it's also this idea of like not buying into all the BS that's around you, and showing love to yourself the way in which you would show love to others. Which also goes against consumerism, because when you're not loving yourself, you buy a lot of stuff. So,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, look, like Suga's August D's mixtape, right? What do you think? He said his original version was even more shocking. It was a lot more swearing and his boss, he had turned it in. He's like, I don't know if you guys want to say okay with these lyrics. His boss was like, Bang PD, he was like, go for it. Fuck it. Well, I don't think he said fuck it, but like, and then he's like, oh, I'll change it. But like, they talk about capitalism, how it's a rigged system, you're a slave, and then, I feel as if, we reacted to UGG, right? They're talking about anger, and they're talking about how people online waste their anger on stupid things, when really they should be angry about big things.
Yeah.
Like injustice, right?
Yeah.
And so you waste it on like the little things and you make anger in general seem not cool. Or not cool, but like you don't use it for what it's for. And you know what?
Yes.
The protesters are using anger for what it's for. That's right. I feel like it's righteous anger. And I think it's easy for me to say, burn everything down, fuck the system, in my safe little house in the suburbs. There's that conflict, right? Because I do think people have the right to riot, especially when you've been oppressed for so long and you're constantly reminded of what people think of you, of what people think that you're nothing. And I think to love yourself in that instance is to say, no, we will not take this anymore, and it is not okay. What is it that MLK says? The riot is the language of the unheard.
Right.
Like you've been civil this whole time, and what does that get you? What does that get you? It gets you nothing. You're supposed to sit down and take it, so that maybe your great and so to love yourself is to declare, this is a declaration, like, no, we are people, we deserve to be treated like people.
Yeah.
And to those who do not believe that we are people, it sounds like, oh well, they're just rioting and looting, how terrible, they should have just peacefully said something. No, honey, we've been saying peacefully for
also like
hundreds of years, and we still treat us like garbage.
Well, but in addition to that, it's also like Well, the guys that showed up with guns a couple weeks ago because they wanted haircuts and go golfing and restaurants to be open, like they weren't peaceful. I mean, if you consider, or unless you interpret, carrying, rifles and AR-15s and all these other things as peaceful. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's just.
And when I post this video on YouTube, it's going to get a content warning on it. Like I have to declare that it is to monetize, right? Like they ask you, like, do you discuss sensitive events?
Oh yeah.
And I'll have to, if I don't, they'll flag it.
Wow. Yeah. What's interesting? So I don't know. This is a roundabout random thing, but there's this. I forgot what the person's name is, but she's super popular on TikTok. And she goes. I think her name goes by Step Chickens or whatever it is. Anyway, she's hilarious. This is an Asian woman, and she posted this video talking about how does she deal with all the hate. How does she deal with all the hate that people post? And her first thing was I think she quoted Casey Neistat, and she was just like, people that hate are, well, I don't agree with this, but he referred to as the people that hate are losers. Because she's like, if you go to anyone that hates on me, if you actually go to any of their URL, their pages, they either aren't posting their face or they're posting some cartoon or anime or something like that because they're ashamed of showing who they are and they're like cowardly in their way. Or if they are posting any content, it's either all hate content or very few pieces of content. So they're willing to scream at everyone and be outside the arena, as Brene Brown says, but they're not willing to dive into it. What was the other thing? What was the other reason she mentioned is, well, it was really more of this message of it really, they also are coming from a very hurt place, and to think that they wake up in the morning and then want to spend their time making videos or writing comments. They're just in a very damaged place. And is that you should just, feel either a certain level of empathy for them or just not really care what they have to say. And she was like, when I embraced that, then it was super liberating. Yeah. And the reason why that kind of brings up with the protest part is there's a part of people that are like, whoa, should I go out there? Should I be out there? What are people going to think? Could I lose my job if I'm seen being out there? People think that all the time about any controversial thing that they might want to speak up on. I've even thought about that when I make videos where I mock millionaires and billionaires. What if I'm pitching to an organization run by one of those later on? Are they going to find that content and then say no? That's the risk that you are taking, and it's brave, and when a band like BTS, or a group like BTS is able to speak up about something and use their platform, because then it gives permission for everyone else to be like, hey, maybe I want to speak on that now too, and if this group can, maybe I can. And so to think about the power that each of us have, even in the narrow group that we speak to, it's still a platform.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think you've seen their UN speech. Have you seen their UN speech?
I did see their UN speech.
Okay, right? Okay. So and
on my own, you didn't even tell me. I just watched it one day. I was like, I got to see this UN speech after they mentioned that they spoke.
Yeah, and RM, they're from South Korea. South Korea is actually a very conservative country. Doesn't recognize really LGBT rights. And he, in front of the UN says doesn't matter your gender identity, doesn't matter. I mean, that's transformative even in America, because, it doesn't matter your race, the color of your skin, you speak yourself. You know yourself. He he's like, I'm Kim Namjoon, also RM of BTS. I know myself. I know the dream. I know where I started. I know my journey to get here, and I know where I'm going. Or even if I don't know where I'm going. And they chose to say that, and you don't realize how revolutionary what they said was until you think about it. Like, the country that they come from is very conservative, but even if they weren't from that country, even if they were from America, the fact that they even said gender identity, the fact that that's like something that's still controversial in the U.S. Like, and they could have lost a lot of people.
True.
Right? They could have lost so many people even before they. So, RM's a professed atheist too, and I don't. But he's a very spiritual
not popular
person.
in South Korea, I'm assuming.
Well, not even that. But like, they have lots of fans who are religious, and I know that I think Indonesia or some countries, they're like, no, they're BTS is of the devil because this person, their leader, is an atheist.
And it does make me realize, though, with like any person, every person has some audience, right? They have people that are listening to them. And it really is like, you really are then challenged to think, what is it that I want to say? Do I want to say things that will get me liked, or do I want to say things that I actually believe? And that is a hard choice for a lot of people, day in and day out, especially when some of the things that they do or what they say, get them paid. And you are like forced to choose, like, should I speak out on this or not? Like, I think of like Muhammad Ali and how his name was Cassius Clay, and we changed it to Muhammad Ali. He went to jail. Like, the dude lost like some of his best years of boxing because he was willing to give that up. Then you got a guy who I loved but lost some respect for during this. You have a guy like Michael Jordan that when something really like big happened in Chicago that he could speak on, about race, he chose not to because he was like, white people buy Nikes as much as black people, and it's true too. So it's like, so people have choices all the time. And everyone has that ability. Like, you have that choice every day when you choose to speak up or not. And it's like, what do you want to do? At the end of your life, are you going to be really thinking about everyone that you got to like you? Or are you going to be thinking about, that you spoke truth to power? Like,
and I think sometimes we all think that you have to be the protester. You have to be the loud.
Right.
And even BTS, I feel like they're very subtle about it sometimes. Like, they're not always. I mean, other than I think one time Suga in an interview outright said that there's nothing wrong with being gay. Right? Like, they very rarely talk about it, but they live their lives that way, right? Like, Suga did a live video talking about the behind the scenes for making his mixtape, and he was talking about the two songs that we listened to, which is Detita and What Do You Think. He pretty much said like he's like, because he always gets criticized, and so I don't think you know this, but those two songs, his mixtape, caused a lot of. There was conflict over it because some artists or some artists were like, you're calling these people out. Why are you calling out so and so? And he didn't name any names, right? Like, why are you? And so he literally said, I lay traps especially in these two songs. I lay traps, like the traps you put out for cockroaches. He literally said cockroaches. And he's like, and even though people know me and know who I am and know that this is what I do, they still step into these traps and they trap themselves. Because he didn't say anyone's name. He didn't say who did what, right? But the people who are saying, oh, you're talking about me. Like, he was like, well, and he said before, he's like, he's like, I'm not talking about anyone in particular, But if you think I'm talking about you, I find that interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like they have another lyric somewhere, like, you know, you played yourself, right? Like, and it's so. I'm not saying that you always have to be. I feel like everyone has an idea of what it means to speak out,
Right.
but it doesn't necessarily all have to look the same or be the same. Like, even for myself,
It's
you know?
true. It could simply speaking out could simply you having a conversation with a friend that does not understand your perspective on something that you know is controversial between you two. It's simply being able to like say what you're thinking instead of holding back on it. I mean, it's interesting. At first I didn't know why I was doing this, but I would be responding to people, you know, via social media when they were spreading conspiracy theories about the pandemic, right? Or, you know, or posting things that I just found super irresponsible because I was like, you're going to get some people killed if they actually follow some of what you're suggesting. And then people were like, well, don't write them back. You're never going to persuade them. But then I realized why I was writing people, you know, over like the span of a month, responding to many different people. It wasn't for them. I wasn't trying to persuade the person that was posting the stuff. I was simply trying to voice another perspective so that anyone else reading would be like, oh, I'm not the only crazy one here. I'm not the only one that thought this was irrational.
Right.
And that's really what you're doing with anything that you speak up on. Is you're simply sharing, you know, your perspective and giving other people permission to be like, if you agree, you can speak up too. Or even if you don't agree, you can speak up because you see that, you know, like I'm brave enough to share, so you should feel you can as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we feel alone, and we're just not.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's hard because, like, especially as people of color, you know, there are repercussions. You know, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. Just like BTS didn't know how it's going to turn out when they were speaking truth to power. They apparently they were on they were on a censored list. They were on a blacklist of artists that the previous president of Korea put them on because of their outspokenness. But this was before they were like huge. You're from a small company and you get put on a blacklist. That could have been a death knell. So I'm not saying you speak out and you can become like BTS and like fucking take over the world. I mean, you speak out, and the majority of the time you get, especially if you're black, right? Like
But just even think about that. Think about playing this out, right? If you choose to do things so that people can like you, right? Like I think of those other groups that are trying to be like BTS, right? But they want to be popular, and you continue to just do what everyone else is doing or you continue to agree to things because you think it will help you to get liked, and you might be successful that way. But then when you finally make your break, then you don't even know who you are at that point because you're kind of just been catering to other people your entire life. While if you spoke, you know, your own truth, you would actually then be getting paid to be you. And isn't that so much more liberating than the other part where I'm like, I have to be this other person to people because this is what they think of me. Like, gosh, that feels like such a jail cell. No wonder so many artists that do that are, you know, depressed or suicidal.
Well, I mean, yeah, look, I get it. It's hard, right? Like, I feel like I'm pretty unapologetic about who I am. But so for those of you who only know me through this podcast or on my YouTube reaction channel. I was a blogger, or I am a blogger, and I started off just writing stuff about my family, and then I started doing. I became very well known about talking about teaching my kids Chinese, and I think a lot of people just wanted me to stay in that space, and I've always been vocal about it. But you know, I got pushback once. So one of my first few posts that went viral was when California was going to reinstate affirmative action, and a lot of Asians were like, "No, that's racist. We shouldn't. You know, like, it's terrible. It's against Asian people." And it's always like the people who have gotten into the university anyway complaining about
Right.
And I was like, you know, the meritocracy is a myth. You know, it's a myth.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the privileges that we have, even if you think that you don't have any. And I got somehow put on some Chinese forum, and like thousands of people came to my site and called me a whore. Called me. They took one look at my husband and was like, well, you know, he's just because your husband's Mexican. He's not, but even if he were, that's not okay with what they're saying. You know, oh, you should. And even on this YouTube channel, people have said racist things to me because of what my family looks like, and what my husband looks like, and his outward phenotype, right? And so it's hard because, like, you know, a lot of people are just like, just go back to talk about Chinese things.
Mm-hmm.
But even when I did talk about Chinese things, I was like, it's not like I could have catered to like the white audience of like, oh, it's okay, you know, we're all good. But no, I was just like, no, you're racist. Don't be all like, I grew up, like, just because it's cool now to learn Chinese, don't think I forgot you guys Ching Chang Chang.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I did get Ching Chang Chang. Even like when my third kid was born, I was at a kid's birthday party at a mini golf course in Hayward or Castro Valley. You know that mini golf course by the.
Oh yeah, of course that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I got Ching Chang Chang, and the lady was like, "Well, my boyfriend could do that because he's part Asian," and I was so lucky. Is it luck? I don't know. That I had a baby in ergo on me because I would have decked him.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, maybe the best thing is not to be arrested in front of my 3 children and my friend's kid's birthday party. But I would have decked him. And I say this as if I could actually ever hit a person. But I you know, like a different me in a different time and place would have punched it. You know? Like, and it's so you know, I would say things like, I don't actually care, you know, my site is not for white people. I'm glad if you get something out of it. You know, I'm not opposed to you buying my book. I'm not opposed to you like learning from me. But don't think I'm going to be like, oh, those mean Chinese people not allowing you to join their groups so that you can learn, so that your kid can learn Chinese. And so that, you know, oh, but my kid's fluent because he's taken 1 year of Chinese and everybody says this Chinese is so good. Like, that's not me. That's not, you know, and so like speaking out doesn't necessarily always have to look like what we think it looks like.
Right.
You know, and this is not to like pat myself on the back. I think I've done some pretty dumb things in the name of speaking out, but like we all have our platforms, and we all have our fears. Like sometimes I'm afraid that if I, you know, it's like it's a conflict. I don't think anybody's just like everything I do is like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm worried all the time. Like I've been recognized in different countries. When I've been recognized on the street, on the corner in Taipei, you know, and they're like, "Oh, are you Mandarin Mama?" And they're like, "Oh, I recognize your children." I'm like, you know, and then it's so easy to get doxxed. You know, like, what if I say something that pisses someone off? And my children, I've been stalked. I've had to issue, like, not, this is before I became public, but like, I've been stalked. And I had to, and it was, you know, and I had to issue restraining orders. And like, it's very terrifying. And then there's also like, oh, if I don't speak out, then what are my friends going to think about me? Right? There's that flip side, the ugly part, right? Of like performative activism. If that makes sense. And I'm not saying that everyone has like these pure motives or whatever, but how can we see whole groups of people be systematically dehumanized and legislated as if they're not people, as if they're not persons, and then on a purely like on the like, this is the right thing to do side, you're like, you can't. How can we be silent?
Mm-hmm.
And then on a purely like self-interested side, who's going to stand up for us? Who's going to stand with us? As I'm speaking as an Asian person, who's going to stand up with us if we're silent, if we're a bad ally? So even in purely self-interested terms, you have to show up. Like,
it's true. It's true. Yeah, what do they say? Oh, they're just coming for somebody else until they eventually like come for you. You know, and you didn't speak up then. It's hard. It's hard to say what you feel, but I think a lot of people think like courage is something you do when you're not scared. When it's actually like, I'm freaked out and I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna take this action anyway, and that's really hard, you know. But I think about it for like anyone, there is something you're truly scared to say or speak out on. And like, that's the thing that you should probably step into. I think the challenge, or at least the challenge for me, you know, with like situations like this is it's what we were talking about earlier. I, you know, want to share how like pissed off and frustrated I am, but I'm also not down to go outside and protest, because I also feel like that puts my life at risk as well as everyone that I, you know, associate with, because there still is a pandemic going on. Yeah. So then it makes me like wonder, like, well, how else can I, you know, speak up? You know, does me clicking one button to reshare something, is that doing that much work, you know, or is that just doing the bare minimum? So
yeah. But you know what? If people didn't reshare things, I wouldn't have learned a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't. I mean, I didn't start off being this like super progressive person. You know, like, I thought I was progressive. I was like, oh, you know, it's okay that you're gay. It's like, thanks for saying it's okay that I'm who I am. Like, thank now that you've given me your approval.
Your permission, right? Right. I was always looking for your approval, so thank you.
Right? You know, like, I went from like, oh, gay people aren't, you know, are sinners, to like, love the sinner, hate the sin, which is like basically saying, hate everything about who you are as a person.
Right.
You know, Jesus loves you. So like, you know, I feel like I've been moving along towards a progressive. I mean, that's what it means to be progressive, right? It doesn't mean that you've arrived at any destination. You're just progressing forward. That's all that means, right? Like, it doesn't mean you have the like final beat on anything. It just means you're constantly learning. And when you what's that cliche saying? When you know better, you do better. But that's what I try to do. It's not. I don't claim to like have the right answer on everything, But I definitely wouldn't have learned a lot of things if people hadn't clicked reshare or retweet.
That's true.
You know, so I think it's like what they say in advertising, right? Like, you have to hear something like 27 times, a good thing 27 times before it'll sink in.
Mm-hmm.
But you only have to hear a bad thing like, what, 3 times?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's part of that, like, trickle. Not to quote Reagan or anything. But like, oh, does that make me old when I said Reagan? I think it makes me old. But like, it's just a little tiny pebble, right? But if you see enough of those, it becomes an avalanche, right? Oh, God, I'm really butchering these cliches today. Well, it takes a pebble to start an avalanche. So, I mean, it feels like it's nothing, but even that picture you shared, right?
Right.
I saw it and I shared it. You know, it changed. It wasn't like you told me anything new, but it was visual. And I was like, oh my God. Right? Like, and I think there's value in it. Like, think of all the people you know and all the people you touch. Just on my personal Facebook, I have like about 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have about 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 on my like actual page, my like Facebook page, like my blogs page. You know, I'm not like a huge influencer by any means, but like those are still 1,000 people or 20 people or 5 people. If it even just changes how you teach your children, that's 2 future people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's the effect is not direct or immediate, but
Right.
that doesn't mean it isn't effective.
What would you have you thought about what you would say to your children about what's going on, or would you just probably not speak about it?
It's not the first time we've discussed police brutality. Do you remember when it was going around, people were like fake calling the police saying like, oh, there's like it was like a prank or something, like, oh, it's like a few years ago. Oh, no, it was a combination of things, like people pretending that someone has a gun and they're calling it. I don't know if it was a real thing, I can't remember. But then also the kid who got shot in his own backyard with his grandmother.
Oh, right.
And so when that happened, because one of my children asked, Mommy, if someone pretended that we had a gun, if someone called the police and said that we had a gun, what would happen? And I was like, well, if you're black, you would be dead. Right?
Right.
And if you're a cute little Asian girl, maybe you'd be fine. And she starts crying. She's like, I think she's like 5 or 6. And my husband's like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, she needs to know.
Oh, yeah.
She needs to know. She needs to know. Like, my children to this day, I think the actual office of the President of the United States is evil. My husband's like, you can't go around telling them that the president is evil. I was like, well, he is. He's like, no, but they actually think the office, like in movies, when they see the president, they're like, oh, is he a bad person? I was like, well, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
I think what's so crazy is I remember mentoring students when I was in college. I was in college in Boston at this, snooty university. But we were mentoring these high school kids from Roxbury, which was one of the few black neighborhoods in Boston. Mm-hmm. I was mentoring this kid, Raymond, and I remember us, like, not only training him, but training a bunch of other young black men, because he was like maybe 15, 16 years old, of like what to do when a cop tries to arrest you. Like what you should be doing regarding documenting, if you can take photos, because at the time, I guess you could maybe take a photo with your camera, but that was about it. Recording it in some way, and really like doing all this, like there was like this 4-point plan of all these things you could do to stay safe so you don't get shot. That was like 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like, seriously? 21 years ago? And then I just saw a TikTok on it that basically said many of the same things I was saying 21 years ago. Again, it's like, so much better than this, dude.
Yeah.
The society is so much better than this. I still believe that most people, like 90 to 95% of people, are really good and really care and think about each other. But that 5% is like someone that is pooping in the pool and ruining it for everyone else, man.
But the thing is, I bet you if you asked any of those people, that cop who murdered George Floyd, I bet you if you asked his friends, I bet you if you asked his wife or his whatever, his loved one, he's a great person. He's a kind person. It's not like this is happening because these are evil, horrible people.
Right.
It's happening because it's all possible inside of us. We are all capable of being this. It's like what? But for the grace of God, there I go. Right? Like we think racism is just a guy in a hood.
Right.
But that's not the only face of racism.
Right.
Right?
Everyone has a little bit of racism in them.
Well, how can you not? Our entire country is racist.
Right.
It is founded on racism. It is legislated. It is. We stole this land. Like we stole this land. We committed genocide to get it. We gave smallpox infested blankets, right? Because that was a quicker way to win a war.
Which is ironic because a lot of the Navajo Indians out in New Mexico are saying they're feeling like the same thing's happening again.
Yeah, well, of course they would, because they don't have running water. And this is in America, the leader of the free world.
Yeah, I just made a video. It's called "Stop Looting for the Good of the Country," and it starts with me being like, this is not going to be popular, but we need to stop looting. And as soon as I say that, I cut to a clip of Yahoo Finance where they stated that in the last 10 weeks, billionaires got $434 billion richer in that short period of time. In that short period of time, Amazon's CEO Bezos went up by 30 billion in just the last 10 weeks. So it's like, that's the looting that I see. That's the shady looting that, you want to talk. I mean, this is my thing, and this is why I'm so frustrated with this. It's like, you want to talk about why people are so frustrated, why people, are so scared of not being able to pay their rent or their mortgage. And it was because all that money that was supposed to go to them instead was given to just a few people. And then you wonder why people are so angry, And then you spark the fire with this BS between Ahmed, who gets, murdered for running, followed by the guy that almost gets murdered in New York, followed by
Christian Cooper.
Christian Cooper, followed by,
George Floyd.
Yeah.
And It doesn't matter.
Those only 3 that was happening
in this week. In this fucking week.
It's past 1 to 2 weeks. You ignore like the 150 people that died last year that were recorded. Forget about everyone. You got to consider everyone that wasn't, able to record. So it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of like people, people are just like, oh, how come it's still happening? I said, because when you fundamentally do not believe that Black people are people, you can do whatever. Right? Like, do you actually, like, unless if you're like a super observant Buddhist or something, like, do you care when you squash an ant? Do you care when you squish a spider? Like, so I used to like, have you seen that Far Side cartoon? Oh, this is when you show your age. When you're like, have you seen that Far Side cartoon?
I watched Far Side. I looked at Far Side.
When there was this, I think it's a picture of a kid holding a magnifying glass to like,
and he's like,
fry ant. But then like above him, God has like this magnifying glass.
Oh, wow, that's right. Oh, that's interesting.
It always reminds me of that. Like every time I squash a bug, I briefly look over my shoulder.
Yeah.
Right? But like, that's the mentality of like, oh, Black people deserve this because they're XYZ. Asian people deserve this. Chinese people deserve this because they eat bats. Like so-and-so deserves this. Feminists deserve it. You deserve that because you shouldn't have worn that. You should have drank. Like, it is blaming the victim always. When really, no, maybe white people, maybe Asian people should see Black people as people. As humans. Right? Like, that's why it's so easy. That's why it hasn't changed. It's only being filmed. It's because fundamentally baked into the like roots of our country is that red people don't matter, Black people don't matter, brown people don't matter, yellow people don't matter, Jews don't matter, right? Like people don't matter until they become white enough or white adjacent enough. So that's why it keeps happening. That's why it can happen with impunity. That's why that cop can like any cop. And again, I am saying this as a person who has benefited from the police. The police have helped, like, I've called the police to like come to my house to, because my father was trying to murder my mother. Okay? Like, I'm not saying that I have not benefited from the police. I'm not saying that I, as an Asian person with like white proximity, haven't benefited from these structures. I'm not saying this as a person who doesn't like structure. I'm like the most anal retentive person. I love structure. I love laws. I love like people being good citizens. I love people not looting. Okay, I love I love the suburbs. I am that milquetoast human who loves the suburbs. Right? Like I just want a boring life. That's fine. But at the expense of other people. At the expense of Black people, at the expense of like not East Asian presenting Asian, at the expense of like, like is that worth it? I mean
that is that's a hard question to ask. Like, is your comfort also exploiting others?
Oh, of course it is. We're Americans. We exploit everything.
Yeah, right. Like, we're built on that. That's why we have our iPhones, and all this other stuff, right?
Because some child made it.
That's why it's like Hunger Games, and we're the capital. There's this anti-racist activist, this older white woman named Jane Elliott.
Oh yeah.
I love Jane. And do you remember when she was in that auditorium and she goes, okay, this is a question for everyone that's white here. It's just like, stand up if you would be willing to switch places with a Black person right now. Like, you'd be willing to become Black, like, you'd be willing to take on what they have to take on. Go ahead, stand up. And And
No
she's
one
like,
does.
wait, maybe you didn't understand my directions. My directions were, please stand up if you feel you'd be willing to switch places with a black person right now. And then she goes, wait a minute, none of you are standing up. So you know. You knew all the whole time. I didn't have to be here to you've always known.
Mhm.
You know, you just didn't want to admit it. And I was like, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you knew it. You just don't want to do anything about it. But I guess the question, and this is, you know, that always comes up is like, okay, well, you know, let's say I live in the suburbs, right? And I'm like, well, I disagree. I disagree with all the police brutality and stuff like that. But what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I live in the suburbs, you know, like, come on. Like, what would you say to someone like that? Like, I have responsibilities. I have a lot of other things I got to do. I don't have time for this.
There's that Google Doc going around, right? Like what white allies could do, and there's that Medium article about like what Asian allies can do. I'll include those in the links, I guess, in the like show notes. But
if I'm someone and I see the Medium article that's like 75 things that I as a white person can do, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna do any of those things. I'm not gonna read that article.
then that's
that's part of it, right? That's
right?
part of it. That's a good point.
It doesn't matter what I say right now, right?
True.
Right? You think change? It's hard enough to lose weight. You think it's easy to change a whole mind system?
Dude, I've been saying that for years now. Like, you're trying to change someone on a part-time basis when you can't change yourself on a full-time basis? Come on.
Oh, yeah. And it's so hard because it's like we're programmed. We're programmed for racism. We're programmed for anti-blackness. From the moment we are born, we are programmed for anti-blackness and you know, patriarchy. Because I mean, who is the gatekeeper? Haven't you seen that meme? Who's the gatekeeper of the patriarchy? And it's white women. So it's like
it's also really hard though, because sometimes you don't even recognize what privilege you do have.
Yeah.
There's this TED talk this guy did where he was some researcher and he did this game. He played Monopoly, right? He had like students play Monopoly, and he rigged the game where one person can roll with 2 dice and the other person can roll with 1 dice, and the person that could roll with 2 dice also had more money to start off the game. And he filmed the whole thing, and he put this like bowl of pretzels in the middle. And he found that throughout the game, the person that was winning started eating more of the pretzels, started like commanding more of the board, started acting more cocky, and really believed they were winning because they were a better Monopoly player.
Okay. I mean, I get it. I understand.
Because they started off with more stuff. And they even knew the rules to begin with, and they still forgot. Like, you forget, like, in the span of just a few minutes, what even that privilege is. So imagine the privilege you might have had your whole life. You don't even see what you have opportunities to that other people don't.
And what people don't realize, and it's even hard for me, is that it doesn't mean that you didn't suffer.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's not an Olympics of suffering. It doesn't mean that you didn't work hard or you didn't study or you didn't have to encounter hardship or adversity and have, it doesn't mean you weren't an underdog. But you didn't, no one makes things alone. Even the weakest of us, right? And it doesn't take away anything from you to have had help or to have had a leg up. It's like, what do you do with that, though?
But my question to you then is, all those people that wrote those hateful comments when you spoke up about affirmative action, where do you think they were coming from? What do you think why do you think they were so angry? What do you think they were attacking?
Everyone thinks there's one pie. Everyone wants to be white. Everyone wants what the white people have, right? Power adjacent. I mean, power, money. I mean, what do you think China is? It's just the like America to the east, right? It's just the colonialists. It's just the baby's awake. But you know, like we're fighting for the wrong pie.
Right.
There's more than one pie, and you don't have to like kill someone else to get it.
Right.
You know, and sometimes the world feels like a zero-sum game, but it's not. It really isn't. I firmly believe that it is not.
Right. That it's more abundant than we thought of.
But it's out of sorry, my kid's something. But it's out of fear. It's always out of fear. Why do people become isolationists? Because they're afraid of the outside. Yeah. Why do people become activists? Because you're afraid of what the world will become if you do not. Right? How do you react to this fear? And that's why I wrote my piece, right? Like, because I am afraid. Because, like, I didn't start off. I mean, I was kind of already progressive, but I wasn't all like. But when my children were born, that's when I was like, what if my child is gay? And so some people's reaction is then, well, we'll just teach it out of them. We'll just hammer it out of them. We'll just become really religious and pray the gay away. But when really it's no. See, I mean, you can hear my kid laughing, like this perfect asshole child. Like, but he should be an asshole for his behavior, not who he is fundamentally as a person.
Right.
Right? Like I don't ever want him to live in a world where he thinks his mom won't love him or God won't love him because he could be gay or trans or things that are beyond his control. Okay, baby, you need to stop being a jerk. And then like, you know, like I don't want my children to ever feel that way. And so it is out of this fear that I am vocal about LGBTQ queer rights, right? That stating what is actually true, right? It's not like they've been waiting for me to be like, oh, finally, Virginia's on the bandwagon to acknowledge that we're actual humans. Like, no, it's I don't want to live in a world where Black people aren't seen as human, where LGBTQ people are seen as like sinners. You know, like I don't want to live in this world. And so out of that fear, that's why I speak up. Right?
Yeah, out of that fear, you either can act or you can pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, you can pretend. You can support the status quo because you're afraid to lose what you already have. Or you can say, no, what they're giving us, what they're allowing us is not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, and again, I realize I don't even know who's still listening, but you know, why is this on a BTS podcast? Because I think that's totally in the spirit of what BTS is about, is like, you know, they use their platforms to speak out about the things that they care about and believe in. They use their power to make the world that they want to believe in, to make the art that they want to see, to make the art that they love and care about, to talk about the things that they care about. And we don't have to have like millions of fans to do that. Like we don't need to be global or famous to do that. You don't even need to be me or Jeff. You don't need to have a YouTube channel or a podcast. Right? Everybody has their sphere of influence. Everybody is an influencer, right? Everybody is a salesman. It's just how do you use the power that you have? You know? So it's a heavier episode than normal. Actually, I feel like most of my podcasts are heavier than normal. But, shall we end it there? All right. Thanks, everyone. Please like and subscribe. hit the notification bell if you're watching it on YouTube, and please subscribe to us. To us, I keep saying us, me, whatever. I don't know, the collective we, on all your podcast channels. All right, be safe.
Yeah.
Bye.
Be safe, definitely.